So how do you move on a battlefield when the sky is saturated with drones? You wait for bad weather, and there's a lot of that right now in Ukraine. Look, it doesn't take much to ground most of these unmanned aerial vehicles. A little rain, even low cloud cover can be enough to really cut down on the eyes in the sky. And when drones don't fly, the infantry moves. Today we're talking with Dimko Zhluktenko to get a look inside ISR drone operations in Ukraine. Dimko is a drone pilot with the Raid Battalion and the founder of Zynga's Paw, who we're doing a fundraiser with right now. You can find the link to support the 429th Achilles Regiment, as well as where to follow Dimko in the description below. And with that, let's get to the conversation. All right, Dimko, thank you so much for taking the time, man. First off, I just want to say, wonderful decorations you have there. Loving the wallpaper. Good setup.
Hey, Preston. Yeah, indeed, it's a setup of just a random house here in Donbass that we spend our rest and relax days in. So I didn't put those fancy decorations myself, and it's half destroyed, but it's not that bad. It's we can heat it. I have a bed in here. I put my sleeping bag on it. It's not that bad.
I like it. So you mentioned earlier that you're kind of on a rest cycle or a short rest cycle because of the weather, and I thought it'd be interesting to get into that. So, I mean, there's just days where you guys can't fly at all. Is that true?
Yes, definitely. Most of those days we actually spend in the positions, hoping that there would be some kind of window for us to use to fly in that. But most of the time here in this part of the year, the weather sucks us. And the main limited factor is the low cloud base. Because for ISR drones, you need really either a clear sky or a high cloud base. So at the moment, it's around 100 meters of cloud base. So it's inappropriate for us. But if we could get at least, let's say, 800 or something, I think we could be doing some job.
So is the issue that you can't see? Like it's the cloud cover. Do
Yes.
thermal cameras then assist with that, or
No.
is it not even really?
No.
Okay.
No. No. There are some very experimental LiDAR kind of type of cameras, but it's very, very experimental. Not anyhow in a serial production, I would say. So practically, most of ISR, I mean, big ISR, is kind of useless when there is a cloud base of 100 meters. So what Ukraine does normally in those situations, we start heavily relying on Mavic drones for doing the reconnaissance. And some part of the reconnaissance is actually left untouched. Anything that is going like 50 kilometers beyond the front line would be solely reconned with satellite images and yeah, stuff like that. So not really a live reconnaissance going on.
With that low of cloud cover, if you are putting Mavics up, does that mean that they're just flying really low?
Yeah, and normally they fly very low. I have seen Mavics in our direction fly 10 kilometers away from base at the altitude of 50 meters. Because on 60 meters, there was already a huge ass cloud going on. So it's, and they're actually made for this type of work. So it's okay. And they're expendable in some way.
And that goes both ways, right? I mean, like those clouds sitting over a position, they're not just over the things you want to see, they're over what Russia wants to see as well. So it seems like overall drone activity is way, way down when those clouds are on.
Yes, absolutely. And also when there is rain, this is the best time for us to infill at the position, to enter the position, because we know that most likely they will not be looking at our position and how we do it. So it's quite good for us.
Okay, with the rain, so with the cloud cover, you can't see, but drones can still fly. So I imagine FPVs could still be pretty active even in fog. But
Yes, yes.
but with rain, does all rain affect the drones? Does it depend how heavy it is? Is it only certain types of drones? What does that look like?
I would say that in a light rain, it is just not advised to fly. But if we're, let's say, mid-flight and in the middle of a mission, we would just be returned to home if a heavy rain starts or even a light rain. Because first of all, it would the drops of water they would drop on the camera. Of course, it is somewhat protected, but because of the wind, different type of wind streams, it could happen that a drop of water, a drop of rain would drop on the camera as well, and you wouldn't be able to see through the lens because that is high-end optics installed in them. So this is one of the issues, and also the electronics because it's not sealed 100%, and it's made to be modifiable. So it's not waterproof 100%, like mil spec or something. So you could still damage the electronics based on that, and also most of the ISR drones they have a way to measure their airspeed, something called pitot tube. Maybe you could put it somewhere for people to see. As an example, basically that's a tube that measures the air pressure, how it's going into that little tube, based on how quick the drone moves into that air. So if there is a lot of water in there, it's no good because it will block the air pressure and give false reading to the main computer that calculates how the drone should fly, basically to the autopilot. So that is also a problematic situation. But a rule of thumb that no drones should be flying during heavy rain, and light rain is also unacceptable, but in critical cases, if there is a real need, we should also do it.
You had mentioned previously that rain then means it's time for infill. That's when you start to see kind of a push from the Russians. Is that, what do you guys have to do then as a drone operator? So you're not able to operate the drone. Are you moving out into position? Are you having to be on more alert? What does that look like?
For us, normally, because the positions of the drones that we fly is more far away, so we have a couple of infantry position be for us. It's not as complicated, not as hard as for the infantry guys who are in the first flank. But obviously, yes, we're not able to fly, so we're just on high alert and looking for ways what we could do, looking for windows where we could potentially fly in to help our infantry guys who are doing the most of the heavy lifting, doing all of the heavy lifting. So our job is basically, to be quite frank, is sitting in the rear and figure out what's best that we could do today, because we are not in the immediate danger. What we could best do for the infantry who is holding the line actually and facing everything that has been thrown at them. Yeah, that's how it
So
looks. We do
it
nothing.
almost it almost sounds like rainy days could be more hectic or busier
Yes,
for you
yes,
guys.
definitely,
Okay.
definitely, and definitely more stressful because in the rainy and foggy days, cloudy days, we would look for each and every opportunity to get up in the air without losing the drone, because we know that it would make more impact because we know that Russian operations are enormously active during those rainy, foggy, cloudy days. And well, if we could provide some intelligence, we could make huge impact.
So I want to talk about the rain piece there for a second, because we've kind of taken it as a given that when there's rain, drones don't fly, so infantry moves. And we've seen that from both sides. We've seen Ukrainian advances and we've seen Russia try to infiltrate. It seems like that's a place where people would try to innovate and come up with a type of drone that could be waterproofed, or maybe could fly in the rain. Do you think now that doesn't make sense for all of the drones? Too
Mhm.
costly and heavy, right? Do you think that's a possibility? Like, are we going to see a drone that is designed to fly in kind of inclement weather?
Eventually, yes, I guess. But overall, you could fly Mavics in shitty weather. You could fly Mavics in the rain. It just It will sustain some amount of rain into it, but the camera issue is still ongoing. So what I have seen personally is that some of the units, they make like a little own umbrella, a 3D printed umbrella that they put on top of the camera. It limits the field of view, but at the same time saves you from the occasional raindrops. So some type of very silly primitive innovation is going on there, but that would be interesting to see a drone that could withstand some substantial amount of rain. It would be very
It,
useful in here.
yeah, because you got to think if nobody's expecting it, that seems like the possibility to maybe catch the other side off guard. You know, we're kind of getting in the habit. You and I were talking about this a second ago. How far drones have come, where they're now borderline disposable. Like they're supposed to be used. FPVs especially. Like once they launch, they're going out. They're not coming back. So you got to get the costs down to make it to where that's effective. That's not the case with what you fly, with the ISR type drones. So how do you guys balance that? Because you want that drone back every single time, I'd imagine. There's no scenario where you're like, oh, well, it's fine. So how does that impact your planning and when you decide to fly and where you decide to fly?
Normally, the planning for ISR is very conservative. So we try to preserve the drones as much as possible because the potential is enormous for the next missions. But obviously, there are some tasks that are seen looking like they are impossible to accomplish. So in those cases, when there is a real need, that there is a real need for the infantry, there is a potential of Russian breakthrough or something, we would have to be in the air no matter the weather, and we would do our best to make that happen. But obviously, if there are any significant risks of losing the drone, obviously we would just return it right away because it's way too expensive and we just do not have way too many of them. And then we just understand that there is a big potential of it for the next missions.
In terms of the kind of logistics of this, when you're operating your drone, are you talking back to your command team? Are you talking to the unit that's on the ground? What does that communication look like?
Normally, there is S2, S3 teams somewhere in the rear. We talk to them through the internet, through Starlink, and they guide us through the mission. So they are basically our like in the airport, like a how do you call it? Air commander, airspace commander, or
Air
something.
traffic control?
Yeah, exactly. So they are doing this type of work for us, but. Um, and with them, we coordinate for the targets that we have to acquire and investigate. With them, we coordinate with whom we have to cooperate, with which units we have to cooperate in the area on the side of the strike tools that they have. And yeah, that's how it rolls. Just talk to your own command post. They give you orders what to do, and we are just the hence flying those drones. Not much. And obviously, we suggest tons of ideas, so they get validated through the command post, and some of that even gets implemented, so we could feel even more of our own impact. And also, they analyze tons of information that is coming from different sources, so that we could get more fancy targets, more juicy targets. And they are also responsible for establishing the connections between units, meaning that we know that in the area there is 10 artillery pieces that are ready to work 24/7, and they just do not have enough of live stream to do their work so that they could correct after each and every shot that they take. So they established that kind of connection with the commander of those artillery pieces, And once we are in the air, they get the message, "Hey guys, it's time to work," and that's actually how it rolls. So there is some type of work that is in analyzing the information, some type of work that is in establishing the connection between the units, and some type of work in doing the direct air traffic control, as you mentioned.
I There is not a good way. I wish we could do this, but there is not a good way to explain how complicated that is. You did a good job of making it sound very simple. It's not very simple. Um, just the number of people from the people, like literally the soldiers on the ground at the front, wanting to provide them with the updates, also coordinating this information with the various number of FPV units around, the bomber units that are around, the artillery pieces that are around, the battle space owner. So whatever brigade or battalion is in that area, the other ISR units that are flying by, so you don't crash into them. Like there's no, I feel like you need to be in that to fully appreciate just how complicated it is. Because what we see is very simple, right? We see a drone feed and then something goes boom that you guys called out. And I think I don't know, it's really impressive and really glossed over, I think, the amount of coordination that goes into making that happen.
Yeah, agree. Absolutely agree. And even behind the scenes, tons of the effort goes into the preparation because the analyze and creating a mission, and kind of planning it with the flying crew is the one thing, but even executing is a whole nother story because you have the plan, you kind of stick to it, but always something goes terribly wrong. And someone doesn't show up, someone cannot do their work, and we have to replan everything midair, to be quite frank. So it's an interesting job because it gives you a lot of both freedom, then the discipline, and also it does a lot of impact. So sometimes we could hit the um, uh, targets that are strategically important for this part of the battlefield, meaning that um, something in Donetsk, some air defense pieces, etc. It's significant.
What's the biggest threat to ISR drones? Is it jamming? Is it interceptors? Is it weather? Something else entirely?
hmm I'll say a mix of three of those. So at the moment, there is with jamming, there is a radio spectrum that you are flying in somewhere on that. The typical ones are 2.4 gigahertz for the radio link between the drone and the ground station. And these are quite problematic because Russians have learned that it's a great idea to jam those frequencies all at once. And it's very problematic for the drones with those radio modules to fly in the area. But on the other hand, there is a very big other part of the spectrum that you could use for your transmitting the radio signal for the radio link. So if you are on the higher end of that spectrum, I think you're doing quite well and more resistant to Russian jamming because to jam those high frequencies, you need more jamming systems, and it's impossible to jam all of them at once, right? So the weather part is something that we cannot change. So I wouldn't say it's the biggest problem at all. It's just how it is. And the interceptors is something that is a big of a big issue for us this summer. There is a prominent Russian group, quite efficient, called the Rubicon, and they have shot down a couple of our ISR drones as well. I have seen the footage in their Telegram channel of specifically my own drone that I have piloted. It's problematic, I would say. The interceptor activities are it's like your ISR drone is somewhat defenseless against that because it wasn't designed to withstand those type of threats. Obviously, you could do the some kind of a little gun that would fire backwards or something. You could design a camera that would look back at the top and back kind of a sphere of your drone and see those targets coming in. But at the same time, it's really a lot of R&D involved in this. I know that there are definitely some drones that have the countermeasures to the interceptors, but most of the drones still do not have those. So I think at the moment it's the biggest issue that needs solving anyhow.
We just saw at the Dubai Air Show, the Skyfall people were there, and they were showing off the countermeasure they have on the Vampire. So a couple, it's about this big, and it's got 4 individual shotgun shells that can fire to knock out an interceptor, and it's cool. But it doesn't look big on a Vampire because the Vampire drone's so big and so bulky and so heavy. But I feel like you just couldn't put that on a lot of smaller UAVs. Just
Yep.
too heavy.
Yes, definitely. And the weight is the limiting factor. The aerodynamics is a limiting factor as well. And some of the systems that we have used to as a countermeasure to those interceptors, they came under 200 grams. That is something that is acceptable to us. But if it would be a 1 kilogram, it wouldn't be, because 1 kilogram of weight is effectively maybe like 30 more minutes of flying of a battery
That's
life,
serious.
because you could
Yeah.
put a bigger battery. So then comes that kind of a trade off. But in some cases, with the flying time of like 1.5 hours, there are drones like this. It's not even feasible, because you have to get very close to launch that and to make meaningful reconnaissance activity. And it's kind of complicated to make meaningful reconnaissance activity, to look through those little pixels on the computer when you're being shot at. If you're being if you're receiving artillery rounds into your position, if you're having to defend against FPVs, etc. So it's a big trade-off and a balance.
What's your preferred drone? I imagine you've flown a couple different models at this
Mhm,
point. Is there any one that stands out to you as like, this is the one, this is the best one right now, this is the one we want to fly every day?
mhm, mhm, mhm. I would say it's one of the British drones, but it's redacted. Redacted. It's classified. I wouldn't call it a name, but it's British.
You went with a British drone. I thought for sure it would be a Ukrainian model.
It's unfortunately some of the tools that come from abroad, they are not in serial production, but they are of very high quality. So, in some senses, Ukrainian drones are the best because you have them in so big of availability. At the same time, it's sometimes the tech isn't right there.
Yeah. That actually makes sense when you say that, because the thing that we do well, the
Hmm.
Western militaries, is build expensive high-end stuff
Yeah.
that needs to be used over and over and over again, right? We have a real hard time with it playing in the FPV game. Um, but that makes sense that the technology, the cameras, maybe the durability for some Western equipment could
Yeah.
still be up there, assuming you get to use it multiple times over.
Yes, absolutely. Especially the cameras and the composite materials part. I guess the Western countries are somewhat better at this at the moment. But at the same time, mm, it's hella expensive. But if it was my choice, if I wasn't paying money for this, it was just flying as a drone pilot, I would take it any time of the day. But for obvious cost reasons and efficiency reasons, Ukrainian stuff is the best in here, I would suggest.
Do you feel added pressure when you're flying the expensive drone? Like, I
Yes,
really
but
hope it doesn't go down today. Okay.
Yeah, but it's you get used to it after a couple of flights. In one of my first missions, I have risked my life to get it recovered. I have driven quite close to the front line at the moment to recover it because it was doing like circles. Brains went nuts of the drone, and there was a hope that we could recover it. But then all of that pressure goes down, and you start worrying about the really important stuff, like the life of your flying group, the lives of them, and the impact that you could make inside your mission. So it's in the end, it's just a tool, and as I often say, it's drones. They should be treated as bullets, as expendable. So I just hope that we get to that state where those drones could be treated as expendable.
Well, you made a point before we started recording about that as well that I think is really powerful and really important, where the drones are important. They're getting a lot of attention now, but they have not and likely will not replace the importance of infantry. Soldiers are still needed.
Absolutely. And this is how you actually hold the line by having people in the man the position. And it's not a cure to each and every problem that you have on the battlefield. Although Ukrainian doctrine has changed massively thanks to the drone innovation. And at the moment, if we just start looking at it closely at the battlefield, we are looking at 80% of kills accounted to the drone. Well, that's what our commander Magyar says. And I could admit that is quite likely because that is something that we see every day. But at the same time, there is nothing so far that could replace the infantry on scale. There are some edge cases of, I think, last winter or something, when Hartia made a first unmanned, completely unmanned operations of their ground vehicles with machine guns, manning the position, clearing Russian trench, and that would be the rest of FPV drones just flying into the position, etc. This is a very great example of a well planned operation, but it's not anyhow close to the majority of the operations, and we're just not at that scale. I would call it an edge case. So I completely agree that infantry couldn't be replaced at the moment. And in some sense, I feel like our current military leadership, they took the drone part way too seriously and somewhat neglected the infantry part.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's easy to do that. It's the innovation is happening so fast, and
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
it's where
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much
go
of
on.
the fighting is taking place. We're seeing the footage, right? And I understand it. And like the argument here in the United States is not more infantry or less infantry, and we're always talking about recruiting, but it's about what we're doing with drones or not doing with drones. So
Hmm.
I get it, but at the end of the day, war is people. Like everything else is just tools.
Absolutely. And all of those innovation, they happened because of people. So the main driver for the innovation is a human being, and only thanks to them, we have all of those crazy approaches, new war tactics of just putting tons of signal repeaters up in the air for the strike drones to have a signal up to the last second of their life. And this is all created just by the ordinary people like myself and my brothers in arms. So in the end, human is the driving factor in the innovation and also in the war fighting as well.
Love it. Well, Dimko, I know you've got a lot going on. Time to get some rest. Appreciate you taking the time, sir. And thank you for what you're doing. You're not just a soldier. You've also helped set up and run Zynga's Paw, which I've had a great experience working with. And I know the audience has been a big fan of. So thank you so much for what you're doing, man.
That was my great pleasure to talk to you today, Preston. And if anything comes up, just let me know. That's great that you're doing the fundraising with Dzyga, and I know that firsthand that this organization is quite legit. And because it's also ran by a dog as a chief, as my dog Dzyga, and my wife just helps her out on that. And I'm really thankful that you are doing all of those fundraisers for Ukrainian military, Ukrainian soldiers. It makes a lot of difference on the battlefield. So thanks to you and everyone who have contributed to this. Best of luck then. Слава Україні,
Absolutely,
друже.
man. Talk soon.
Yeah.
So thank you so much to Dimko for taking the time to walk through all of this. I feel like this is an overlooked aspect, at least on this channel, of the war. ISR drones. We spend a lot of time looking at FPVs, at bombers, even long-range drone strikes. But none of this happens without the persistent ISR coverage over the entirety of the battlefield with people like Dimko and his unit flying these operations. And on top of that, I'm pretty fascinated to learn more about how weather impacts these ISR or all drone operations, really. We've got a bias, I think, because all of the footage that comes out of this war when it comes to drone footage is only during clear weather. And that's because these drones are only flying when the skies are clear, or at least it's not too bad of weather conditions to be airborne. And I think it leaves this blind spot, no pun intended, to where for hours or even days on end, when it's raining nonstop or low cloud cover or really, really heavy winds, there's just limited to no drones in the sky at all. And I feel like we sometimes overlook that. But either way, be sure to check out the links in the description below to support the 429th Achilles Unmanned Systems Regiment. That's the fundraiser we're doing with Dimko's organization, Dzyga's Paw. You can, of course, also find where to follow Dimko in those links as well. That's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.